Yuri Bezmenov, I probably butchered the pronunciation, I apologize. Yuri Bezmenov described the Soviets' expanding influence through active measures, ideological subversion, basically psychological warfare. Now let's talk about psychological warfare. Some may recall the wackos at Waco, the things the FBI did to try and demoralize the Branch Davidsons. It's supposed to be considerably more subtle than that. Penn Jillette, the magician who debunks bullshit conspiracy theories, rallied against the idea of standing by a belief to the point nothing will convince you. When even if, say, again, sorry if this example is offensive, even if an atheist was to see Jesus Christ himself on the cross and feel the nails digging into his palms, they would deny the nails were there. They would deny the existence there was ever a figure like Jesus, much less that he is, or was the Son of God if you believe the stories. I say that because I am firm to the point nothing can convince me that it's not the case the Soviets, the Russians, are not using ideological subversion and psychological warfare today. Nothing can convince me that Putin is not running troll farms, Soviet or KGB agents, whatever you call them today, security service, foreign intelligence, they're the same thing. Spies, trying to turn Americans dominantly into traitors, betraying their cause to Russia. Nothing can convince me that when it comes to the invasion of Ukraine, there are not voices, even some prominent and powerful voices in American media and government, who are actively trying to force allegiance away from the victims such as Volodymyr Zelensky and towards Putin having every right to conquer Europe. And this is from someone who agrees with Penn and Teller that being so married to a belief is bullshit.
Some may remember the Fiker, the giant bird-like race. We came to the assistance of against the Kirathi. We later got a Fiker-sized pilot on the TCS Austin. Even I struggled not to laugh at her suggestion the Kirathi's interest in their planet wasn't religious, but a lunch order. Nate Tolitarin was an unbelievable 7 feet. The Greek native giantess was incredibly mobile for her size. She was caught doing backflips on the flight deck during downtime, and one of the nicest people I had ever met. Dear call sign. BFG suited her well. Like me, she read a lot, studied a lot. Nate Tully had an interest in technology, showed me how computers could run an accurate portrayal simulation of a person's looks and voice. She used me as an example. I could see she found it fascinating. Like in the course of my duties on the Concordia, I thought to ask her about the idea of using technology for devious methods, creating the appearance of someone being a traitor to the Confederation, for example. Nate Tully showed me an old diary, handwritten, explaining how what I had suggested had been used for centuries. The technology, as cool as Nate Tully thought it was, hadn't reached the stage where it could fool someone. Again, she ran a simulation of myself, then ran it with an old actress, the wife of the special agent from 24, she told me. My voice, as the computer had cloned it, sounded closer to this Leslie Hope than me. If one knew what to look for, Nate Tully told me, a fake could be easily found. If someone was really invested and had the skill and technology to do so, it was possible to create a better fake. Nate Tully's use of it was purely for entertainment, not treasonous. But bottom line, she concluded, it was possible. And attempts had been used to try and defame people. However, she also pointed out there were far easier methods to take down someone. Other ways for a supposed traitor to cover their tracks. Sadly, this was something we had faced before. I know Reiko by reputation as a reliable mercenary. Confed had been offering Kurds to bolster their ranks, and she took the pay, but I think it wasn't a matter of money to her. I think Reiko saw it as a noble cause despite her feelings towards the Confederation. She brought up the Confederacy of Earth, the 19th century slaveholders who went to war. Memoria, we were the good guys. We didn't mean it like that. She was an orphan, so she earned points from me there. Before Confed, she was on a colony where the law enforcement there had become fascist. Like Judge Dredd, the old comic, so I'm told. Couldn't know if Reiko was familiar. She was a fan of these old vids. A vampire with a soul, trying to save souls. His name was Angel. I could tell she couldn't wait to suggest I watch it, given my call sign. I could see he was influenced to become a better person. I could relate, not from her perspective perhaps, but I really wanted to become a better person than I was before, on first joining the Claw. More patient, more tolerant. Once upon a time I would have executed traitors out of hand, like Reiko had been known to. I very nearly did to Todd, when a stupid stunt he did got Ruzi killed. One would argue that the Confederation needs more mercenaries or at least pilots who think like Reiko. She justifies execution as a means of saving more lives. Still she can be reasoned with. Hear people out. I order the self-professed executioner to bring in a traitor alive. Reiko will keep her word. Mina Caressa was my senior officer at the academy. By the time I flew out to the Tiger's Claw, she and her squadron had set fire to half the border zone. The thin blonde-hair major was actually a member of the Confederation Marines, not Navy of Air Force, but she had pilot credentials. Over 2,000 hours in the Hornet alone, with some 78 kills to her name. Like Grunt, Stalker served in ground combat as well as an auxiliary to the naval forces. It was after a fight with a Kirathi warrior where her face was destroyed when she was assigned to the academy, while she healed from having her facial features reconstructed. It was hard to get a read on her. Some instructors were strict, formal, and our orchestra projected. But I had seen her working on bikes with other members of her unit where she was considerably more casual. It was based on seeing this. I sought her out for advice. This was after Bossman was killed, and I tried dealing with it. I tried closing myself off. That didn't work. I tried seeking others to help deal with the grief. That, too, it helped, but it was still a fight. Something similar happened during Thor's Hammer. Hunting down the Kirathi secret weapon that destroyed Goddard, some of the pilots weren't keeping it together. I was one of the lucky ones, and then I received a communication from the Shell Queen. Her captain was monitoring the close hunt for the Siva. He was also witness to the atrocities committed by the Kirathi and, we learned later, had underlying post-traumatic stress over it. His solution, should we fail? Well, it was horrifying. Mercy. He would explain later like it was a sensible idea. He knew how it sounded, and he didn't come across as crazy even then. But the fact he would even consider such a monstrous idea, that he actually proposed it, and in turn word reached me, that made keeping a level head touch and go, for a while. Until we blew up that starbase, I was dreading what would happen if we failed, though I did my best to hide it. Both these matters I asked Mina about. Unfortunately, there is no simple answer.
This next song goes out to the Dragonborn, the savior of Skyrim. This one's a favorite of mine, a legend we all know and love. Our hero claims a warrior's heart. I tell you, the Dragonborn comes, with the voice-wielding power of the ancient Nord art. Believe, the Dragonborn comes. It's an end to the evil of all Skyrim's foes. Beware, the Dragonborn comes. For the darkness has passed, and the legend yet grows. You'll know, the Dragonborn's come.
Shiro Shao. Shiro the White Wolf. At the very least, saving him got us a cool ship out of it. I found him in the Maze of the Dead, that fabled treasure hoard laden with traps. Well, that was his plan all along. Shiro was at the mouth of the money pit, and I could see what he was going to do. Couldn't let him kill himself. So I ran and jumped just as he was to throw himself to his death. Gotcha! I growled, catching him in midair, before trying to work out why he wanted to throw his life away. I should have been angry about it. I felt it, but for some reason I felt that this boy needed to live. Turns out Nightmare, that knight who turned evil on finding Soul Edge, he killed Shiro's family, destroyed his village. poor boy was left with nothing, and having saved him, Shiro latched onto me. Because I saved his life, he developed a crush, maybe, attachment at the very least.
I've had experience with would-be suitors. This, however, was different. Shiro's feelings, I didn't think they were romantic. Not then, at least. I had given him another chance at life. A reason to live. Even if he was interested in me, did I dare tell him no? Even if I let him down gently, he could have literally gone over the edge again. The best solution I could think of was to bring him home. Had it occurred to me at the time, there was one ally I could think of who could have looked after him. Doing so would have been unfair of me. I knew that. This was my responsibility, and one that for some reason I thought it was most important to see through, that this boy lived. At the very least, father might have some ideas. Train him up to defend homeland. So how did we get a ship out of it? We had allies in defending Korea, allies in finding Soul Edge, Soul Calibur. I knew better then. Shiro knew right away that it was a lost cause. His motivation was to stop Nightmare, and he would bring his weapon back home, though he heeded the warnings heard from the people we were fighting with. Unbeknownst to me, he had fled. To seek further training, become a better fighter, father told me. Better aid us. Much as I wanted to find him, I had my hands full at home. Shiro returned years later, ostensibly having learned everything he could. He had visited different countries, gained training and experience there, and allies. Returning home, he had found the Japanese had made landfall. Korea had already defeated them, and they were going to destroy their ship when Shiro stepped in, said to seize it instead. Bring it to the Sung dynasty. It made for one homecoming for Shiro. Whether he expected to become Sung Shiro Shao out of it, I couldn't guess. I was pleased to see him return regardless, and him me as well.
When DeepScan began working in personal protection and bodyguarding clients, I knew that the girls would need an expert to train them. Upon researching candidates, one name came up, a woman who was quite keen to teach us, especially given her profession. Ichijo Reiko. I quickly found out that her birth name was supposedly Tanaka Ki, but the accuracy is up to debate. She was an orphan. The important thing was Reiko conducted bodyguard work, but also assumed to have taken money for assassination. And my research quickly showed that the skills in being a hitwoman and being a bodyguard were very much interchangeable. DeepScan needed knowledge from assassin's perspective and how to counter the tactics they would use. Reiko sought us out. So when she did it, I thought it was worth the risk in meeting her, seeing what she was about. I immediately stressed that this was purely a defensive, not an offensive one. No killing, no force. I felt that I had to exert that authority, show her who's boss. Reiko said that's exactly why she wanted to train us, to do the job, right, and to prevent harm from coming to our clients. Reiko was also realistic, went into detail on making the legal and moral choice to use force, deadly force, if it was needed. She was very professional, explained how we're DeepScan to have to make the decision to defend a protectee. Then it would be in the line of duty. She, assuming the rumors were true, would make that decision premeditated, or who she worked for would. I heard that police were very much uncomfortable when they had experts, military, discuss killing. I was about to ask Reiko to tone it down on that type of talk when she beat me to it. She had done a lot of the reading I saw, and expressed how police should feel uncomfortable with taking a life. And then it dawned on me why Reiko would have been a good choice to advise us. She happily discussed, in detail, the concept of how to prevent assassination. Some would be blaze or overthink it, but Reiko was focused, provided pertinent details without prodding, and answered a lot of my questions without being asked. It was when Reiko said, that a lot of what took place in VIP work comes with the job. It was part of protecting clients to deal with some of the more menial issues. Turning a blind eye to something that could be compromising to them. We had problems with that before. Comfort terrorism was something might have to act on, for example. But for the most part, it would be a case of keeping our mouths shut and try and mitigate the damage where we can. Being assassin, I thought I could trust Reiko to do that. Plus, she didn't strike me as a hard ass. She had a hard ass, but she wouldn't be acting as some drill instructor when teaching how to prevent assassination. That was a lesson I learned all too well, the hard way. So based on the fact Reiko clearly had the knowledge to help us, the willingness to teach our girls and do so in a way that I should have, I decided to hire Reiko to deep scan.
We were operating along the east coast of Africa, along Tanzania and Mozambique. This was after the events of Somalia, and poachers were taking advantage of the strife Farah added caused throughout the continent. They sent us south after Super 6-1 was shot down. It was me and Force Recon, 10th Mountain Infantry and Carlita and the Rangers, while Delta remained. Theory was sure they could be part of this joint operation too, but all that training and experience, they would be better served elsewhere. They had us working with some offshoot of the World Wildlife Fund going after animal trafficking, smuggling. We did it with humans, children, and the skills were transferable. Real Captain Planet group these were, you know Captain Planet? Think them. High on ethics. Didn't like the idea of the Marines and Army having to use force regardless of the cause. We made it work. We dealt with the locals there too. That is, we provided aid, security, to the people affected by the poachers and their ops. Some of the people there had resorted to drugs, burying themselves in their homes, waiting for it all to go away, not living, just existing, everything to cope. We saw the same thing in Europe, Kosovo, Rwanda. Picture Ukraine for a more modern context. Worse. Easy to criticize looking from the outside. Having seen it, you have to be grateful never to have gone through it, been to a place where you were that desperate for an escape. Hard to judge when seeing it puts it in perspective. Push the idea further, substitute drugs for alcohol, basically the same. Or smoking. Sex. Hey, porn, people get addicted to the point it dominates their life. Just look at how desperate people get and the lengths they go to for what we are called in to stop. The child trafficking, not to put too fine a point on it. Workaholics, all of them, the level of effort they go to would be on special forces level. Workaholics, that's another form of addiction. Or you get obsessed to the point of madness over, you name it. Trying to prove or disprove who was in the right over the Montreal screwjob. If you don't know, don't worry about it. It's a wrestling thing. Someone I really would have liked to recruit into the Marines is a hardcore wrestler. Point is, you can't condemn the people resorting to desperate measures to survive what they're going through. If I was them, I'd be taking drugs too, having seen both fell the strongest men and women.
Given the length and breadth of her experience, I'm glad Captain Francesca is on our side. Just all in on the cause, if not to confed, were the stories to be believed. Carlita supposedly died when she tried to defend the Sky Bridge. That was a wormhole that informants came to us about. So the story goes Carlita was supposed to kill the pilgrims who had the information in order to keep it a secret. Instead, she chose a more combat-orientated role, going after the Kilrathi directly before they could find out. It was discovered years later when trying to liberate Kilrathi slave mines, and on the trail of Mandarin traders that Carlita survived. But combat had destroyed her voice. She was the XO to Major Kryza, who turned to science outside of Confed to rebuild it. Even paid out of pocket for surgery to restore her voice. The question of where the money came from led to rumors. Everything from pay for betraying Confed to raids on alien gold were suggested. Fact is, Kryza was kind-hearted enough to do that, so Carlita's voice could be restored. I heard the stories myself of how special projects and Black Ops would utilize triple agents. Operation Solitaire. Project Funnel Web. The atrocities committed to prevent the Kilrathi from obtaining uranium and nuclear materials. I wasn't ignorant to the idea that the Confederation was squeaky clean, and as noted, whatever injuries Carlita suffered, it did nothing to dilute her viciousness. It seemed to be almost a requirement to be a member of those alpha units. an unhinged disregard for the laws and customs of war. In fact, there was an incident during Thor's hammer that shows we could teach the Kilrathi how dark we could be. Perhaps it's time for people to know the story.
Oh, hello. My name is Lily. I make a living as a courier in the land of Tamriel, specifically Skyrim. Fascinating place. If you ever read the story of A Song of Ice and Fire, well, some may argue or claim it's not our version of Westeros. Ask the Imperials this. If they don't believe they are in the War of the Five Kings, then they are at the very least fans. I know that the place how should I put this delicately? Extremely hostile towards women. Whereas here no one bats an eye at the idea of female warriors all sides of the conflict from Winterhold to Casterly Rock, from the Iron Islands to Essos, would worship at the feet of Molakbal. I think you know what he is the god of. Suffice to say, there is a reason why the all-powerful Serana fears him. It is also the reason why I learned how to take care of myself. The glass swords I had obtained in my travels were something I trained diligently in, to protect myself and the people I travel with, whether from bandits, assailing travelers, or the Dark Brotherhood. It was them that led Dovahkiin to me. Who or what is a Dovahkiin, you may ask? You may know them better as the Dragonborn, the hero who would be the savior of Skyrim from Alduin. The World Eater. Even since escaping beheading at the hands of pretentious imperial captain that could have well cost them the war against the Stormcloaks, I knew who they were. It is my job, after all, to deliver mail to the people of Skyrim, even the great heroes, one from a creepy fellow, all in black, paid a lot of gold to make sure the Dragonborn received it. Well, the reason, the story goes, is because Grillad the Kind was killed. Grillad was not kind. She was the cruel mistress at Honorhall Orphanage. How cruel? She was known to chain up, beat, and torture the children there. No purpose to it. Not even pleasure, just a matter of course. Like the world had to be as miserable as she was. Everyone knew what a monster she was, but only one dared put a stop to it. The Dragonborn? Or one of their companions? Details are fuzzy. So where's the problem? One orphan escaped and performed the Black Sacrament, praying for days to the Dark Brotherhood to kill her. Aventus was actually in awe when the Dragonborn found him, not just that they were his champion, but had already done the deed. However, the Brotherhood were robbed of the contract, and they were owed a kill. The letter they had me deliver was a warning. Then they kidnapped the Dragonborn and tried to make them kill one of their prisoners to pay the debt. A life was promised, they reasoned, and a life was owed. They likely didn't intend for their potential recruit to single them out, although the assassin whispered, "Well done," on her death. So I'm told. She must have considered the Dragonborn was worthy in killing her. They then sought me out in Whiterun, apparently after seeking other allies to help train up to destroy the rest of the Brotherhood. Having explained what happened, I realized I had indirectly led them to the Dragonborn. With that, I sought to protect the fabled hero. This must have struck a chord with the others who came with us. Despite being told not to follow inside where the Dark Brotherhood were hiding, they did, and ensured the assassins were wiped out once and for all. The Dragonborn also took me along when there were murders going on in Windhelm. During the course of the investigation, they were canny enough to realize that the town sorcerer was being framed and worked out who the real killer was. We hid out in the market, me Dovahkiin and a cat as company, and when the real murderer made their move on a woman, he ended up with a huge axe through his back, courtesy of the Dragonborn. As for rumors that we slept together, the truth is we did. Every night we traveled, every inn we stayed at, we slept together. Same beds. There are some things a girl is to keep to herself. This is one of them.
Oh, there once was a hero named Ragnar the Red who came riding to Whiterun from old Warwickstead. And the braggart did swagger and brandish his blade as he told of bold battles and gold he had made.
But then he went quiet, did Ragnar the Red, when he met the shield maiden Matilda, who said, "Oh, you talk and you lie and you drink all our mead. Now I think it's high time that you lie down and bleed." And so then came clashing and slashing of steel, as the brave lass Matilda charged in full of zeal. And the braggart named Ragnar was boastful no more, when his ugly red head rolled around on the floor.
I heard stories of ferocious Karen Fisher, the Mexican lieutenant stationed on the TCS Harbinger. I wasn't there, but story goes a Super Hornet was blocking the flight deck because its transport broke down. Repairs were underway, but the deck needed to be cleared. We could have just pushed it, but that would have damaged the craft. That was when Karen went to try and lift it enough by hand to be wheeled clear. Even when engineers turned off the artificial gravity, she wasn't strong enough to lift the fighter. And we're talking someone who lifts weights comparable to Confed Navy SEALs when the opportunity presents itself. Her attempting to help out made several other fighters aid her, and they were able to move the Hornet aside. Just one of many examples of her tenacity. I would see this for myself when I requested pilots for the Austin, and Fisher was transferred to my ship as a result. Confed wanted us to conduct a bombing on a Kilrathi base, one that may have been developing weapons. This is a task we needed much heavier gunships for, except we didn't have any. We also had a strict timeline, so we couldn't get the right tools for the job. We had to do the best with what we had. Mission was to use up all ordnance we could for the assault, but to Karen, she explained in her debrief that meant everything had to go. Once all her missiles were used up, she kept up the assault, despite the order being to withdraw once she was out, wanting to cause as much damage as possible. And once the guns ran dry of energy, she went to touchdown planet side. Lord only knows why. My best guess is what she was thinking was using her sidearm to kill a few more Kilrathi. I had to order her back to base, but it was clear to me that when given a task, she will see it through.
Petya Tylovich was the Ukrainian lieutenant who was assigned to the Concordia once we had exposed the traitor on board. She was perhaps best known for her family in the 21st century fighting their way through Eastern Europe, hitting traffickers of people, children along the way before fleeing to America. One of them joined the legendary Manhattan Ladder 18 Fire Department. Another, on Russia invading their country, returned to try and assassinate the president. He did execute his political enemies, after all. Petya, from how she asked a lot of questions about Zach Coulson, about Mariko, and how Thor's hammer and the Sivar bombing Goddard was related, showed she had not just that tenacity, that commitment her family was known for, but a genuine interest in the Confederation. This was shown where, after promising to keep the details she learned to herself, was placed on the flight roster. Unlike some recruits, Petya didn't complain about her assignments. She was eager, but not overly aggressive. Calm, upbeat in the cockpit, and she flew very close to her wingman, maybe a little too attached. When asked, Petya explained she wanted to be there to protect who she flew with, and also not to have them distracted by flying off. She elaborated that her flight lead should not pay attention to her. Petya felt she should be able to take care of herself, or not, she shouldn't need a babysitter. Better they not worry about her. By flying close, Petya believed it alleviated that concern. I think I made a serious mistake. How so? While preoccupied with craft work, thought I would look at the YouTubes. Videos on political discourse came up. Further down the rabbit hole I went, the more physically painful the stupidity was. Mild example was family fed up with being looked down on for using racist slurs. Wanted to treat gays and lesbians bad. Ended up hating America. Thought moving to Russia would let them be their worst selves. So they did. Only to realize rule of law, not even fascism under the totalitarian dictatorship, but common sense such as banking details, declaration of income, applied to them, and they hated it. They spoke out. Only for them to be seen as speaking against their supreme leader Putin, and were censored. To cut a long story short, they regretted moving. Well, having seen Putin's Wagner Group Nazi militia invade Ukraine, and used rape as a weapon of war on the civilians, I could have told them that. Why you think my family escaped in 2007? We knew what would be brought to homeland. Better to get out while we could. Get others out if we could do. Far as my involvement in professional wrestling is concerned, it's like this. My family could see what was going to happen in Ukraine way back in 2007, and we made our way across Eastern Europe and eventually to America, where we crossed country and found refuge in the immigrant area of Manhasset. That's one of the big towns in New York, in case you didn't know. All perfect legal, of course. We had to have papers, do it the right way, go through right people. Otherwise could not do. And to pay back debt for America giving refuge, I joined fire service. Was part of the safety crew for this traveling wrestling show to honor soldiers overseas. Victims, families of victims of terror attacks. They did video game characters, cartoons, Japan animation, European animation, comics, Western TV shows. Silly concept for some, it was for the kids. Woman who came up with idea was mercenary for Blackwater before someone in Marine Corps took her into unit, use her expertise to aid Afghanistan and Iraq operations. She sent home after. Well, perhaps better I not say, but she still felt indebted to doing something in light of September 11th, took him off and got him into cartoons, games, wrestling, started this show for him, people like him. As he grew older, she began being hounded for allegations of what she did in Iraq. Won't go into detail for her sake, but met me when they did Manhasset show. Respected the hell out of me for what I did to get to America. Serving in fire service. Became good friends. As time went on, she suggested I try out for legendary Manhattan Fire Department, honor real heroes of that Tuesday spring morning. Turned out Ladder 18 were recruiting for their aid car. Later, woman asked about me looking after her son since she had to do something about the people after her. He too old for me to be his mother, but could act as his older sister, give him place to live. Taught boxing so I could look after him, protect him if needed. And because he was raised following wrestling, he asked about me using my fire service as a gimmick. I inquired on his behalf, but to be honest, I was thinking if I got hurt doing wrestling, couldn't be firefighter. If schedule roster conflicted, had to choose wrestler or firefighter. As it happened, they absolutely loved that I was with Manhattan Ladder 18. It wouldn't fit as a wrestling character, however. Jobs, no matter how respected, do not translate to a wrestler. But they thought since the idea was put to me and they wanted me to still honor serving as firefighter, how about a referee? That I could do. September 11th orphan was wrestling fan. Since he was orphan, do it for him, no?
Some of the recruits were watching an old film, Judgment Day. It centered on trying to stop this invasion, just like we were. Except it was robots instead of aliens, the ethereal, elders if you wanted to get technical. I saw the part where the nukes were used, and spent the next week glued to the infirmary ceiling. You see the woman, one of the heroes, she was the very image of me. Same hair, same hat, glasses. Even the commander couldn't coax me out, but his claim that scene got him too when he was too young to watch the film was a valiant effort. He eventually got me into therapy. Something he said he needed himself, saying if he saw himself barbecued in a movie he'd be hiding in the infirmary too.
One thing that was used to try and sell me as a wrestler, sell me as the Battle Wrestling Fighting Alliance champion, and this was done by Reiko Tanaka Ki too, was combat sports being our entire life. For me, that was true. When I wasn't fighting, I was training to fight. When I wasn't doing that, I was helping family and friends. And that was basically it. When I got into wrestling, when I met Reiko, she loved how committed I was, but she felt the need to pull me up on it because she was concerned if I made it my entire life, sooner or later I would break down physically or mentally. Reiko showed me how people had made political discourse their entire life. They lived and breathed their idols to the point of fanaticism. They supported who was running for office to the point they wanted to be fucked by them. Very much a cult level of obsession. That I already knew. That I had no problem with. And her example wasn't exactly a needed wake-up call, but I took Reiko seriously. Heeded what she said on pulling back just a little. Try and make it so every waking moment wasn't focused on mixed martial arts or pushing too far to not have the obesity I had as a child. Something the fans showed me helped. I did play video games when I was young. In fact, that was part of the problem. I was invested in stuffing around when I should have been looking after myself, looking after my body. This fan showed me how I was made up in this Saints Row game, that Grand Theft Auto game. Same look, same voice, clothes, everything. And I thought that was awesome this fan thought to do that. I looked at other games where you could do that sort of thing. Nate Talishi helped with that. And I had been looking at real estate too. Buying property, businesses, profiting off them, using the money to buy more, employ more people to run them. Not a huge serious investment, but an interest. A way to rest the body, the mind, from the level of commitment I had in physical training.
A town down was doing an interview with a Western Australian newspaper, and he got angry when they brought up wrestling being fake, not as hard as AFL or rugby. This isn't the first time WM Media had gone there, and the wrestlers were understandably upset. My take on it is so was Maggie Doyle's death. That wasn't real. The Blue Healers fan reaction. The shockwave the event sent through Australia. That was real. Cole's spokeswoman did more to get the reaction from Australia than these journalists ever did. So, how about portraying wrestling as real when it's scripted? Predetermined? Everyone knows by now it's as real as Underbelly portraying the Auskick murders. You're supposed to buy into it being real. Speaking of, as for wrestling not being as physically demanding as footy. Anyone thinking that should try 1 hour of tree cutting or roadworks or landscaping, farming. Just one. You manage that, then go to Sydney, head to the Sydney Cricket Ground, head to Melbourne or Perth, to Optus or Marvel Stadium, see how you go in the Swans or Blues or Eagles training camp. You manage that. Then try the same thing while doing the extra gym work, so you look to be in top physical condition. Appearance is everything. Gary Iblett, Tony Lockett, and Wayne Carey don't look nearly as impressive as John Cena or The Rock, but that takes nothing away from these legends being the greatest players ever. In wrestling, you have to be everything. The total package. Now, these reporters wanted Austin Theory to demonstrate wrestling holds on them. I'm going to tell you straight, we could. Odds are you'll feel it. You probably wouldn't break being put in Mariana's armbar, but you'll certainly be stretched. Plus, most of these holds require cooperation from both parties to be done safely. I do a power bomb on you, I can absolutely do it in a way so you wouldn't be seriously hurt, but if you don't know what you're doing, no matter how much I try and protect you, look after you. Do the move safely instead of taking the impact on your back and being sore for a couple of days. You could take nearly a ton, under over 1,000 kilograms of force on your head or your neck. Being put on the spot like that, being asked to do something that could seriously injure or kill them. I'm not upset over Austin or Grayson being uncomfortable with being put in that position. That's like confronting a cop on why they get to have a gun, something that can kill. They get upset about it. Whether they could have handled it better, the guys were in the same boat.
Okay, Carlita Francesca doing a reading for Nate Hawley's Wing Commander project. With the destruction of the Tiger's Claw, and the investigation of whether Christopher Blair was negligent or complicit in allowing the Kilraith he attacked the surviving crew had been transferred to the TLCS Austin. The Claw survivors will be spread across to other ships and squadrons. Meanwhile, Captain Jeanette Devereux, call sign Angel, has asked me about new pilots with her now serving as Austin's Wing Commander. I have just the person in mind. Lieutenant Karin Fischer, call sign Ferocious, think a combination of Tintin the Belgian reporter and Soap from the Modern Warfare games. Now make them female. More muscles, intense. I think under Mean John's humanist influence she would be an asset to her flight roster. The Super Bowl was this week, the 49ers and the Chiefs. This might sound strange from someone who back in the day listened to John Madden on the radio while we were in Kosovo or Rwanda or on some mission to stop human or child or animal trafficking. I didn't take much notice of this year's Super Bowl. Last I remember was the uproar over kneeling during the anthem, and I mean, I get it, but it wasn't the Bills or Bears or Lions or Giants. It wasn't the Dolphins or the Raiders. You know, for fun. Didn't matter who of the two teams won the Lombardi Trophy. Or who the halftime show was, could have been the Who again. Give us the University of Arizona Marching Band. Give us Chubby Checker. Give us the United States Army Drill Team. These days it's Dre and Snoop Doggy Dogg and Eminem, which... Okay, now do I go? There's a Super Bowl ads? No, I'm much more interested in the state of play itself. Tell us how Dan Marino threw to Dan Johnson to score the touchdown off a field goal find. Or Edelman came from 4th and 10 to convert the touchdown. That's where it counts, not who was in attendance or which celebrity was with which. It's not my business if it were Justin Bieber and give me a name. Rehana, if it were the president, okay? Who the president was dating would be interesting. Otherwise, when you show the actual game, I'll probably have a look.
Lieutenant Devereux looked at me with reverence for being all in on aiding the Confederation with the Sky Bridge. Or maybe it was because I was one of the few who bothered to listen to her when she began reeling off statistics like one of those old-timey baseball radio broadcasters. Soon as I saw her in that vidthracath put out, I knew she was 7 shades past fucked. No way out. Could guess what was going to happen a mile away. But what happened next? Shit. Vander, a fellow Belge. He was thinking brainwashing, he was thinking Manchurian Candidate. Good guesses, just not what actually happened. I think we both knew Angel was doomed. I don't think we anticipated she would have been gutted and eaten. Anyway, Jean may have been killed. Her execution may have been used to get under Colonel Blair's skin effectively, so I hear. That particular mission may have been a one-way trip, an act of desperation to try and stop the war. If Angel guessed, of course she would take it.
Something we don't hear about often these days, not as often as I'd like, is discussion on the American dream. No, not Dusty or his son Cody. I may be old school, too old school. I'm talking about excelling academically and athletically in school, scoring the game-winning touchdown for your team. Off the back of your accomplishments, joining the military and serving your country, reaching the top of your field in the area you focused on, honorable discharge after surviving 2 tours abroad, coming home to a loving wife, or husband, girlfriend, boyfriend, partner, high school sweetheart, look, Superman addressed the importance of acceptance and not caring about race or gender before I was even born. You get the idea. 2-story home, car, garage, your pick of readily available jobs, start a family of your own. Nowhere did I recall that dream including actively colluding with and supporting a foreign threat to the level their media adores you, nor can I remember the American dream being using your skill and tactical prowess as a quarterback to plan and plot the overthrow of the government, discuss on video meetings in preparation for the attack. Brag how, if you were in charge, the failed coup would have succeeded. For the life of me, I cannot find any reference to the American dream, ye older school American dream, taking pride in harassing and bullying the families of children killed in shootings. In fact, these sound like someone who wants to tear down America to me. And maybe that's the point, to destroy the current establishment and replace it with something new. Would this new system work? The old one, bad as it may be, if I were to use computer terms, would be like going from Windows XP to Vista. Or for a term wrestling fans may be more familiar with, from 2K19 to 2020, or say on commentary they decided JR's replacement was to be Susan St. James.
Consider that in the history of the world, there have always been disposable creatures. They do the dirty work. They do the work that no one else wants to do because it's too difficult or too hazardous. And an army of children, all disposable. You don't have to think about their welfare. You don't think about how they feel. Whole generations of disposable people. Taker hawking boner pills. Fuck. No, you go back to the inscrutable phenom like a good dead man. No wonder he wanted kayfabe to still be a thing. Any shred of mystique in wrestling is gone, and we're trying, desperately trying, to bring it back. That ain't fucking helping.
Tanaka, Reiko, she has me working on a show voice for Full Metal to do promos. Forget what you see on Twitch or YouTube. Despite our feud, she's still pushing me to be a better wrestler. I want to talk to you not as the future prospect of the promotion, but as myself, as a real person. Today, we're going to go through, I guess you could call it fan mail. I get tweets, fan reaction, and some of them are pretty wild. Take this one demanding why I have anything to do with Vander. Well, the reason is he's this big cuddly bear. He genuinely busts his ass for people and really pushed me, Taddy, to a level he pushed the other talent he gets over on the show. Let's look at this guy's X profile. Okay, I'm guessing I should be with a cave-dwelling neckbeard whose account is full of erotic wrestler photos and political views. Nah, I'll take Reiko over them. We have this guy and he just goes on and on about how women suck. How he hates them. They shouldn't be in wrestling. Wait, so he doesn't like women? He only wants men? Is he gay? Let's look this guy up. He's a raging homophobe. I was about to suggest you look up Bastion Booger. Here's one. Separated at birth. Judy. Full Metal Wrestling. Judy. Real doll sex toy. Ha ha ha. That's pretty funny. I mean, hey, I have my own action figure. I don't think there's a Roman Reigns version, so you know one up on him. Why does a loser get to dominate Nicole Karichi? How come Full Metal didn't use their squash match stipulation to protect Wifey? Well, they tried, and the reason they let it slide is because Daisuke was going to have what I showed her later on done to him. How come you don't support Trump? This guy asked. What has Biden done to help you? Well, I never aired my political views. I've addressed political or hot-button issues, things like scandals, just not actual politics. If you want me to address politics, we need a president who is strong, who has integrity, willing to be bipartisan for the good of the country, has the interests of the people at heart and a record that their political enemies cannot attack, or at least would look foolish doing so. To go any deeper than that would risk me drinking myself to death over the sheer frustration of how tribal it is. How do you deal with it? You like Mike Mizanin, The Miz, he was subject to that backstage bullying and hazing. He was accused of being disrespectful. He was thrown out of the locker room over eating chicken. The other guys, they thought he did something wrong doing it. Miz took it on the chin. After 7 months of not acting upset, just taking it, he took it like a man. And the people who didn't have it in for him, they were impressed. Taker, after Miz begged forgiveness, the guy who kicked him out wasn't there anymore. Taker was the backroom leader and said, Miz, yes, I'm rescinding your ban. To have that strength of character, to not let it get to him, that showed that his backstage tormentors were in the wrong. And I think that's the way to go about it. I think Reiko would say the same.
I hear Bill Maher. Hear him demanding we confirm his claim that wrestling is fake. It's fake? No, really? Never heard that one before. Correct term is it's scripted. Predetermined. Not fake. If he's so determined to show that wrestling is fake, then surely he wouldn't be afraid of stepping up to a little girl like me showing it. Or maybe he would prefer someone like Nancy Arthur, a trim 5'6" Lita type who was a professional killer for Blackwater. Or maybe Bill Maher would feel safe with our chief medical officer, our head physician, 60 years old, mixed martial arts and Army Rangers medic. Carlota the Reaper Francis. Maybe the name would put him off. Maybe he prefers younger women in Corinne Fisher. Also a mixed martial artist. Or maybe pure wrestler is more what he's looking for. Maybe he wants to try telling Ichijo Reiko that wrestling is fake. You know I would be eager to see how my idol would respond to such a claim. Think Rieko is too dangerous. I won't even bring up Brittany Anderson then. Or maybe he would be okay with the nicest, kindest, gentlest wrestler I know, Nathalie Tarin. Or maybe the fact she's 7 feet. Biggest women's wrestler in the world. Damn near biggest woman in the world, period, would put Bill Maher off. How about it? Still want to claim it's all fake. It's all a joke. When all anyone remembers you for is Max Headroom? Okay. Then put up or shut the fuck up, bitch. We're tired of your ilk. A quick look at political social media shows that trolls who come into enemy territory cannot handle the slightest bit of criticism. They rage at their idol being criticized, block you if you don't swear fealty to them, and they come in looking for a fight but quickly show they cannot stomach it. Their logic falls apart. They quickly resort to insults and threats. It's not enough for them to stay in their political camp. They need to try and antagonize their enemies. Good reason to not indulge.
A lot of fans, wrestling fans, people working in wrestling are clamoring for a more adult product. One where they do push the envelope, sometimes too far past good taste. Same people also don't like those boundaries being pushed. In part because of their audience, some shouldn't see that content, and I side with them on this. Kids watch the products they want adult content on. They just don't want it on their show. I talked to Nathalie and her sister on this. She and Ariane are on the same page on this. Do you mind if I discuss what's likely an uncomfortable topic? I promise there is a purpose to it. Okay, if you don't know who Nate is, the world's largest cosplayer, and she's getting me into doing that too, is a huge Dragon Age fan. Think Game of Thrones, the, well, game. And like the show and books, it has a lot of rape. BioWare dance around it. They don't want to call it what it is. Only Callie, I'm told, says it's rape. The Terran sisters say if you're going to go there, then say it's rape. Wrestling did it. Vince McMahon, for his faults, accurately called what Triple H did as rape. Road Dogg bragged about it, but they never came out and said it. The Kane storyline, Vander actually quit wrestling for a time over him being a rapist and considered the hero. The face, I don't think they ever said he raped Lita, but clearly he did. That's, Glenn Jacobs, actually, and the role he did with Amy Dumas, not Vander, in case you thought. Anyway, Nate, Ariane, they say no lewdness and no prudishness. If you are going to use edgy content in your product, then go ahead and do it, and fans will react accordingly. Maybe you shouldn't use rape in your work, references to Nazis and the Holocaust. It can be done. It can be done well. Some weren't up to the challenge, whether it be tried with the seriousness it deserves or merely for shock value, a ratings grab. Nor should the person in charge or the audience be condemned or canceled because they don't like the product the people collectively agreed to put together. Someone on the team pushing past the limits of what the group feels is inappropriate. Okay, everyone needs to be on the same page and not skirt past, pardon the pun, of where you set the limits. But you, individually, you as a group, put what you want out there. See what happens.
I remember this book on trading cards, and it brought up if you come across this gotta have it card, say a Levi Bone Crusher Funko Pop signature. The only way you can have it is to give away all your cards. Book advises to walk away with your dignity intact. What does this have to do with wrestling? I'll try and quote from memory.
I know I'm not supposed to speak up here. I know I'm only here, because of my connections.
Okay, I'll stop that. Look, what kind of business sense is that? You've done everything you can to look after the guy, given him everything. Now he's threatening to leave unless you give him more. That's wrong. You have champions leaving and working for the competition. Devalue your title. I'm sorry. That's BS. Guy who said that was Jean-Paul Levesque, and he would become the biggest name in the business. Regardless of how you feel about Montreal, how much he tries and take the heat for it, how much Sean puts the blame on him, he's right about one thing. A guy you try and help, try and keep from leaving, You give everything, and he still threatens to leave unless you give him more is bullshit. At what point do you have to let someone go? You may love the guy, but do you love them to the point keeping them means your company burns? Harsh as it might sound, is it fair to the men and women who thought enough of you to work for you and play ball? Does it outweigh the impact this guy causing you grief were he to stay? You may lose the promotion. You'll lose it anyway if he stayed.
You're a Cody Rhodes stan, aren't you? You are. Okay. How does this theme song go? I believe it's Adrenaline in My Soul, something something Cody Rhodes. No, what, never mind. How does the chorus start? My father said, when I was younger, hard times build better men. That part. As well as me wanting to rip it off if there was a way I could get away with it, that's the part you should listen to.
Josie Jane is supposed to be 2K's version of me. Wow. Okay, let's have a look. The hair and build is where the similarities end. While she is a Canadian who wants to be a Cajun in Louisiana, maybe a voodoo priestess, Cannibal Daisy Duke gimmick might be in her wrestling future, she also screwed over the other women. This might be this might be real. Nate Tolley noticed it too. How the career mode, my rise, 2K tell a story, and it's supposed to be real, and it's supposed to be fake storyline. If I play a heel, sure, screw over the women. Josie Jane is meant to be genuinely trying to fuck you over. She's supposed to be the clique trying to sabotage Dwayne Johnson's career.
You see, I wouldn't do that. Break kayfabe like that. You know, not needing some wild gimmick. Me and Josie have that in common too. And I've seen some wild ideas there. Outside of cosplay, we have old soldiers, old female mixed martial artists, as in Hihachi. We had someone who saw Rei Ayanami and thought, how can they be as different to that as possible? Oh wait, that was me. As it happens, they're pushing for me to be a luchador trying to make it with whatever's on hand. Kinda like my career, except geared towards more Mexican wrestling. Sure, I can do it. Let's see if I can help influence the idea if we go there.
Do I think a female version of Undertaker, one of the women taking on such a gimmick, would work? Depends on the approach. Don't think the Undertaker gimmick would work, but a lady playing a similar role could see that working? Then again, what would an Undertaker gimmick work on nowadays? I can't see many of today's fans buying it. A darker character from a woman. Could see it working, though. It's harder to pull off. The Undertaker's character is one rooted in mystique, the unknown, something a person cannot explain. These days, fans know way too much. It can work, as the Bray Wyatt character has shown, but it's not easy.
Rock's now calling himself the final boss. Unless Mark Calloway got real short, real black, real fast, Dwayne's lying. He should have learned his lesson from Cena and brought it via satellite.
I don't indulge in politics, but I will address a question I have been asked. Quite a bit, actually. Why not assassinate the president if he is so bad, without naming names or picking any particular president? Doing so would make them a martyr. His supporters, and there would be enough to elect him president, would tear the country apart.
Something wrestling fans may have noticed. Maybe one of them can help me out with this. You follow wrestling for a long time. You follow Michael Hickenbottom a long time. You follow Mick Foley a long time, or Mark Calloway, and you hear the stories they tell. Then, when you read what they say or hear what they say in a different interview, the story is changed. I won't say that Shawn Michaels lies. He does have the rep for it, but case in point, he discusses Montreal. Brings up Hunter Jean-Paul, his best friend, chiming in, taking some of the heat. You would think that would be the real story. You would think Michael Shawn wouldn't implicate Hunter like that, but they seem to make that the official story. Make out Hunter was responsible or more involved. But you hear it told later and the story changes. To be as fair to Shawn as possible, you see the same with Cactus. You see the same with Taker. They discuss their legendary Hell in a Cell match or the Rumble street fight. They bring up Shawn or discuss other guys on the roster. Their story can change from one telling to the next.
You know, the Matrix films?
You know Lawrence Fisher saying when you're ready to dodge bullets, you won't need to? Well, that's kind of how extreme wrestling is. Mick Foley, he didn't need to be thrown off the cell. Mark Calloway, he didn't need the boneyard match. Steve Williams, he didn't need the supermarket brawl. Don't get me wrong, all these things were awesome, but they were the right guy, the right place. By the strength of their character, their skill, they were already over. Do what you want, but if you wanted to do it the right way, get the fans behind you first. Get the promotion pulling for you first. Then when they have you main eventing, put the title on you, see if you still need or want to do it.
Asuka versus Minoru Suzuki. What the fuck was that? Seriously, what the fuck? You know, this just reinforces what I said earlier about some of the less reputable wrestling schools in Japan that subject people trying to become wrestlers to physical abuse. Oh, I get why it happened. Kanoko Arai called out Japanese women's wrestling. Western fans would know it as Rumble Roses, which is cool, but she was right to call out the unflattering and sexual perversion, humiliation some use women's wrestling for, and she got a lot of heat for it. Kanoko, Asuka, apparently, got what she wanted from the match, but I think, and I say this with the greatest respect to her, she's Riko Hanamoto in real life. What Reiko should have been, Kanoko put herself in a very dicey position. If not Suzuki himself, then someone who had it out for her could very easily had her beaten worse than what she was, abused, raped. I wouldn't put it past some of the creeps to have offered a bribe or blackmail or even try it themselves. You know, fuck this noise. I don't know if Uri has legitimate combat training and experience, but I encourage her to get it. I think all women should be capable of being warriors, able of protecting themselves and others. Hopefully they never need it, but it's something I'd like them to have in case they do.
You know, been playing Grand Theft Auto. Been playing online. Playing as, well, myself, typecasting right. There's a character called Lester Crest. He gives you missions, some of them very well paying and fun missions. There's just one problem. Half his dialogue make him out to be a creepy little shit.
I don't know if Rockstar set out to make him so insufferable. Make him out as a parody of a hacker who belongs on the FBI watch list and brags about it. But Jesus Christ, and full apologies to Christians, he boasts about sex offenses. Either he is trying to creep players out or is just naturally gifted at it. I ended up begging for the chance to kill him.
Please, for the love of God, in GTA 6, give the option to kill Lester the unlikable. I'd buy it. GTA Plus. Anything if we can get the chance to kill Lester.
Mental health in wrestling is certainly not unheard of. I know it's something that's brought up backstage in Full Metal, and I was surprised and a little delighted that Alexa Bliss brought it up during the Legacy story mode in 2K. You'd be surprised at some of the big names who have struggled with mental health and depression. Guys like Bliss, of course. Well, girls, you know what I mean. Guys like Kurt Angle, Becky, Daniel Bryan, Big E, The Rock. Yes, The Rock. Believe it, or don't, he struggled. Guys like Tanaka Ki. Yes, I admit it. I confess, I have mild depression. Take medication for it and everything. There's a reason for it. Reason why I do struggle at times. Things in my life that cause me to be... I'm better than most in having depression, coping with depression, which may or may not qualify me in trying to help others who need it. Bottom line, I think, for me, if you are not okay, then at least fake it. Fool the people around you so you don't upset them. You might even fool yourself.
Do what the punk at the bottle shop won't do. At least pretend to care. Pretend that you're all right. Like I'm doing now. I'm okay, really, but I can also fake it when I'm not. Simply being called up, having the need to step up for a job or something. That can make all the difference in the world.
Yes, and stay away from politics. Believe me, I know. That will cause depression more than anything. It's like talking to a wall, except you get more from a wall. Getting into the mud with a pig means you get dirty, and the pig likes it. And the fuck your feelings crowd. They have the most sensitive of nerves. It takes zero effort to set them off. Take it from me, because I know. Be very careful about what you indulge in.
December 25th is coming up, And I'm just gonna say it right now. Die Hard is the best Christmas movie ever made. I'm taking a stand on this. Prove me wrong. It has everything a movie should have. Goodwill towards men, decries greed, spending time with the family. I'm calling it Die Hard, best Christmas movie ever made. And if anyone disagrees, I will fight you on the side of the street. I will fight you on the street over it.
Some fans might be thinking, since I shared my top 5 games of all time, whether I have played many of the wrestling games. The answer is yes, and even were they turned into a virtual reality sex simulator. I won't convince fans no mercy, and Here Comes the Pain are not the best ever made. Instead, I'm going to address the bad ones. My Mount Rushmore of the worst wrestling games ever. And most would immediately suggest WWA 2K20. The game itself honestly wasn't that bad. But for how much of a cunt the programmers, the developers, publishers were at the time, I hope they were fired. With them attacking fans, critics, criminal hacking, encouraging child exploitation the way Ronnie was, many of you would be asking what could be worse. What could be worse is this old PC game on the invasion. You made about 4 choices. It lasted about a minute. Turns out it was a virus. So Invasion would be the George Washington. 2K would be the Abraham Lincoln. 2 more. Unfortunately, there's a lot of contenders. Raw, Revenge, Simpsons, Backstage Assault, Steel Cage. Aftershock. For offensive content, you could argue Rumble Roses. My pick, however, would be WrestleMania 21 on Xbox because it was broken. Broken. You couldn't play it. The game wouldn't work. Imagine renting this, or worse, buying it and seeing it was not just a poor man's SmackDown versus Raw, but one that didn't function. With 3 down, 1 to go, I have to make this last one special. And I can hear the names being suggested. Betrayal was genuinely one that you had to ask why make this. But a okayish Game Boy fighter, Backyard Wrestling, didn't stand out to me. 5-Star Wrestling should make the list for being a straight ripoff. I think I can go one better, where most choices were either entertaining at the time, a massive disappointment, or you take in the limitations of the time. Take Simpsons Wrestling. Now take the Simpsons out of it and make something just as bad 15 years later. You have Hulk Hogan main event. Using the augmented reality of your console camera to do a match might sound fun, but this amounted to doing maybe 4 moves. And that was it. That was the whole game, where the Kinect worked from okay to not at all. I think this might be the worst. Plus, I remember a review on a similar game. No matter how technically good it was hated because it was about a group that would later be copied by the Proud Boys. A similar argument could be made for the star of this game. With every respect to Hogan from both a quality standpoint and audience alienating premise, this would have to be one of my 4 worst wrestling games.
Hey, yo, you radioed before about trying to find your girlfriend, right? Said I don't think it was something I could pursue. Doesn't mean I ain't tried. So did some digging. Got a call from Bennett. Possibility your girl's alive, but you may not want to hear what happened. Gonna tell you anyway, up to you what to do with it. Ever hear of Manchurian agents? Not traitors as such. These guys were drugged, brainwashed, tortured into being unwitting pawns. Your Earth's Central Intelligence Agency created it. Possibility Kilra perfected it. Possible it was used on who you're looking for. One fact is she wouldn't do it willingly, would have to be forced to. Like I said, it's conjecture, maybe something to hold out hope for. What I got. Take it or leave it.
One big talking point at the moment is the push to transfer vehicles to electric. In my experience in testing out, working on numerous motorsport-grade cars, I honestly don't think there is an important enough difference in performance, power, speed, unless you were to use them for racing. For race purposes, okay? The technology isn't there yet. Should it be used when it is? I would argue that whether it would be the same with gas and hybrid vehicles. Now, let's talk about gas cars. Great concept, environmentally friendly, much cheaper to run,
Not as powerful as the Super Saiyan Mega Hyper Turbo screams a lot. Fuck the environment, coal rollers some love. That isn't the problem. The problem is the strain it places on the engine, as well as the potential for the gas freezing and stuffing your vehicle no matter how many times it's worked on. Because the engine has to work harder, it will wear out sooner, rather than later, at which point you may as well just get a new car. I think the people pushing for electric vehicles, their heart's in the right place. My problem is when they become belligerent, putting every offensive environmental message on their smoke-blowing truck, even ones calling to commit murder. Yet they are hypocrites for not trying to limit their own carbon footprint. As politics is concerned, I lean on what Mina Krisa said. Mina, if you don't know, works in Ohio Valley Wrestling as an advisor on military gimmicks, angles, and is an actual member of Marine Force Recon of Iraq, Somalia, stopping trafficking of humans, children, animals, Kosovo, Rwanda, Eastern Europe, Afghanistan, Iraq again, war on terror. She admits she would have loved me in the Marines. I wouldn't, but Mina's open about if there was a way she could do it. She would have talked me into, found a way to get me in the Marines. She's right about one thing, how politics have become a cult. Mina's right. When it's the world against your political idol and you believe the entire world is part of some grand conspiracy, your idol isn't that important to lie about as some fiendish plot? When your political enemies are not entitled to due process for the same crimes your idol has committed, or you try and mitigate or limit their responsibility or involvement despite the courts finding them guilty, you clearly demonstrate hypocrisy, double standards. Not a cult, you say? When anyone who doesn't suck the cock of your political idol and say it's the best thing they ever had in their mouth is considered the enemy, then yes, you're in a fucking cult. I'm not going to stand here and lie. When it's that extreme, you're in a cult.
Ever meet your heroes? That's a fair comment to make. You look at Stone Cold Steve Austin, certainly someone to emulate. You look at The Rock, you look at Undertaker. Then see Steve Williams, Dwayne Johnson, Mark Calloway, and you're disappointed over something they say. Something they've done. That's why you don't see me emulate them. I don't come out on a quad bike or nothing. I could impersonate Jill Valentine from Resident Evil, but she was a cop. Ex-cops are best cops, and she's close to being my hero, but would I want to meet her? Which one? Some may worship Reiko Hinamoto, and I certainly like her, but is she a hero? Heroic, sure. Same for Star Wars, Soul Calibur, Kim Possible, Wing Commander 24, any pop culture, anime name you can bring up from the cosplay dress-up wrestling shows I did. Even Paragon Shepherd, if you actually met her, would you like her? No, I say, instead of looking to a hero, be your own hero. That's what I try and do, and what I think you should do too.
I've been hearing about fears over going woke and how it's affecting media. How this is the sole reason for everything wrong in the world. Kay, I could make a suggestion for a new comic book. For the sake of argument, let's create a character. For the funnies, we'll give him the power of misogyny. He causes men to lash out and attack women. We'll give him the name Killer 69, whose entire being, his whole life, revolves around hunting down and executing in the worst ways people of African-American persuasion. We could argue whether or not this will be the next great superhero. One of the greats to join the likes of Iron Man, of Captain America, the next Batman. Or isn't there a fascist hero murder cop or a shooter of anti-fascists that's considered a real-life superhero? But all we really need to see is how successful anti-woke media has become.
Why am I targeting Nicole Carici for the title? I'll tell you why I'm targeting Nicole Carici for the title. It's quite simple. Love. Yes, I said, love. I'm doing it for love. Calm down, Makoto. I'm referring to the love of this sport, the love of doing it to the best of my ability, but most importantly in this case, because I abandoned a life of love for wrestling.
At the age of 16, attending college, Buffy the Vampire Slayer took the world by storm, and I came west. Computing video games and the internet were taking off, and at the time I was looking at a local life of ambulance driver. I knew right away that I was different to the others. Instead of watching Home and Away, I was catching early morning screenings of X-Men Evolution. I didn't want to be like Aqua or Cher. I bought into the women's revolution that was happening. Lara Croft, but she was too slutty. Dana Scully, Joanna Dark, Rebecca Chambers. Were I smart enough, I could have been her. Or Jill Valentine. And wrestling had really taken off. I looked at my classmates, my countrymen, the boys and girls from Japan where I was supposed to be from. Being an orphan, that's the one early childhood matter I know. The girls were the submissive, suicidal stereotype, too shy to even connect with others. I didn't want that. The boys were jerking off to underage girls, made to look like sex symbols, and more well-endowed than grown women who could sleep around legally. I didn't want that either. Wrestling, though. That I wanted. Not Sable or Terry or the Cat, or even China. I wanted to do what Stone Cold Steve Austin did. I wanted to do what The Rock did, Undertaker, Triple H. But to do that, to be any more than local talent, I had to leave the life I knew. Leave schooling. College had nothing to teach me to get into wrestling anyway. My prospective job. My adoptive father. The young man who was interested in me. Very interested. He was like the last decent guy in the world but needed to stand up for himself. I tried to help him, but he would hold me back. I had to choose him or wrestling, and I chose wrestling. With wrestling being bigger, more popular and mainstream than ever, competition was fierce. Some would resort to doing anything to gain an advantage, or simply to survive. Let them have their time in the spotlight. I was determined to be the best wrestler I could be, legitimately. I also knew early on the danger of being scammed, ripped off, abused, assaulted, humiliated, sexually raped. So I learned how to legitimately fight on top of wrestling, how to use wrestling moves for real if needed. My adoptive father taught me some. I learned more. I trained not only to be the best wrestler I could be, but in the best fitness I could, putting on more muscle than my body type should, to the point of, if I didn't wise up, it would break down. All in service of warding off attack. And I carried a gun. Trained with it like I did wrestling, gained the maturity and discipline to be what I judge a responsible gun owner, at the same time refused to be a victim. Then September 11 happened. Like the rest of the world, I was in shock. Like the rest of the world, I tried to support the people reeling from it. Not long after that, out of fear of terrorism, I took a break from wrestling and flew home to the family I knew. Not long after that, my adoptive father died. Police killed him in a fucked up raid. Since then, I couldn't trust law enforcement. I couldn't stay. I couldn't leave. I could only ply my craft the best way I knew how. Whether it be in hardcore brawls or cosplay wrestling or multiverse events where we had me fighting someone who was a Japanese animated character, or Yu-Gi-Oh! Or Dragon Ball. This went on for over 20 years, with me trying to find my real family. Never did, but I'd like to know. I'd hear of other wrestlers, other promotions who got involved in the dark shit I would never touch. And I guess I became something of a feminist. Not too over the top. Least I hope not. Take Joshi Japan Wrestling. At best cliché and camp, at worst creepy sexual humiliation. I managed to get some of the girls who did it out. Much as they clearly loved wrestling, they would be happier not prostrating themselves to horny fans or presenting their opponent to crowds who were just about playing with it. And I was happy enough doing wrestling my own way until this year. That guy I left,
the last decent guy in the world. He went through incredible personal trauma, family problems. He was abandoned, and I couldn't help. He ended up trying to kill himself. Numerous times, in fact. If I stayed, if I chose him, instead of wrestling, maybe I could have protected him, keep him from going in and out of hospital. And yes, I acknowledge that got dark. Like I said, I'm challenging for the title out of love. Love of the sport we do. Love of doing it to the best of my ability. And in this case, because I abandoned a life of love so I could do wrestling. Give me a shot and Nicole Carici and I will give you the best goddamn fucking match you will see at Super Brawl 4. Give me the title match and I will show why I have earned the right to show wifey, hubby, and Full Metal that I'm among the best in this industry. Nicole can have any match she wants. Cage, no rules, ladders, submission, table, falls count anywhere, tap or nap cell, I don't care. I walk out of Super Brawl the champion or I don't walk out at all. Long as I can still stand, I'm coming after her title.
Yu Sky is getting hate because she's Japanese. Again. I'll address this only once, because that's all the attention it deserves. Racists can't even get the country right. They're too gutless to say it to our face.
They have to hide behind a computer to try and get a reaction to their bigotry. That's what it's all about to them. Report them, block them, ignore them. That's all the thought hating someone for being Japanese deserves.
So, who would be on my Mount Rushmore of greatest female wrestlers? I can absolute respect the hell out of Joni Laurer and Patricia Ann Strategias for what they brought to the table, but for my money first has to be Amy Dumas. Lita was able to bring that unique Lucia Libra style to women's wrestling, take on the boys convincingly without losing her femininity. Second would have to be Kanoko Urai. She was Rieko Hinomoto if you know who she was, had she made the big time, and with her we also got the likes of Kairi Sane and Io Sky. Third, there's numerous names I could give it to. Charlotte, Becky Lynch, Ajay Lee, Paige. This one is going to a personal favorite of mine, Pamela Martinez. Yes, the kumquat Karen. Bailey could play the kid appeal female John Cena, someone who is maybe, for want of a better term, too innocent for wrestling, while still a true threat. She could be a vicious heel. She could alter and adapt that heel persona to be more of a leader and less someone fed up and black-pilled. Plus, she has the body, the fitness, where you look at certain photos or videos and, okay, I'm not saying I want to be fucked by Pamela Martinez, but if I did, it would be because of this particular photo or video showing how good a body she has that would make me say, okay, she wanted to, I would be willing to be fucked by Pamela Martinez. Speaking of which, Demi Bennett, this was China as it should have been done. Again, not saying I want to be her Liv Morgan, but Rhea Ripley has the body you will respect. To the point I gave up trying to match her, it's not gonna happen. She has the wrestling ability. She has the mindset, the attitude, knows what to do, how to do it. Some may remember the cartoon blocks that would run before television became pretty much just news and advertising. Ripley is too young to remember. She's as good as she is, and she's only, what, 27. For me, it's the little things. Whether it's being knocked out of the ring and reaching over to untie a fan's shoes or playing with a kitten that had somehow ran in on her entrance. Rhea, Demi, shows she has what it takes to be the top woman in the sport for decades, and she clearly demonstrates how much she loves being on top.
So I hear Tanaka was boasting about female pilots. Claims if there was an all-female squadron the war would be over. Gotta admit, Nip ain't wrong, and I can say that being a Jap myself. Marine pilot I know said about this Lion Squad way back in the War on Terror. They set fire to half the Middle East in Hornets and F-117 stealth bombers and Raptor and Lightning fighters and a C-130 gunships that we really should look at how the Confederation can make a space version. And choppers. If we had such a force here today, the Emperor wouldn't dare set his forces off Kilra. Thraketh would be too scared to ever fly, I can promise you that. The TCS Tiger's Claw. Confederation's flagship of ace fighter pilots. Veterans of Thor's Hammer, Omicron Squadron. The Sevar killers. All that and a bag of chips. Thing is, the stress of being behind enemy lines got to a few of them. Thankfully for them, it just so happens that I'm a pilot, too.
One thing we need to face facts and be worried about regardless of who you support in the 2024 election is the unhinged and feral blind extreme loyalty to a political figure, to the point of seeing them as gods. Some voters see themselves as awesome, which, okay, sure, who they vote for is awesome, which, yeah, okay, and how much everyone sucks and is subhuman because they do not agree with both. Their Nazi-like language, yeah, Nazi, face facts, regardless of which god they extol the virtues of, is concerning given how much they goddamn hate anyone whose extreme zealotry does not match theirs and does not revere their political idol as they do. Their pretentious preaching demonstrates they are only a small step from such fanaticism to go from words to actions. Or shall we look at the acts of violence spurred on by political ideology? They have all the hallmarks of a zealot. Anything that isn't boastful worship and praise sends them into a rage. Let me put it in terms cats and dogs would understand. They are completely and totally batshit insane.
I know you'll likely scream for me to shut up for giving the game away. I'm going to let everyone on this secret anyway. The border and immigrants coming into America, they're not the end goal for the current Republican Party. They're the ball. MAGA doesn't want to solve what they see as a crisis, nor they want to campaign on fear.
If they stopped immigrants, then they couldn't bitch about them. They wouldn't have an issue to get votes on.
Rei Aya Naimi is this character from the series Evangelion. Kinda a giant robot anime mixed with mind-bending religious subtext and overtones. Rei herself was a parody of the waifu lust object for anime fans. She was also supposedly something of an inspiration for Reiko, the one we know and love. Ashito Reiko. Tanaka Ki. Reiko knows her. Reiko hates her for being a submissive, suicidal stereotype all doom and gloom.
That's the point. Too depressive to be likable.
But because she was so seemingly weak, fans loved her, felt sorry for her, wanted to protect her, make her life better. That's what I'm given to understand anyway. This is all secondhand material. I haven't actually seen it myself. I know she wants to die. Says as much. Told she did anyway, though why lie about her admitting it? She's also supposed to have ethics, morals. Despite her death wish, Rei supposedly has genuine concern with protecting people.
Out of being predisposed to being basically a child soldier.
Oh. Spoilers, by the way. I don't care, but you might. She's told to shoot a kid and she balks. She's seriously injured by the one person she trusts and seemingly feels betrayed. She's horrified both by the truth about the giant robot she pilots and her skills, her mind melding with a robot. That's how they are supposed to operate. Rei uses her mind and body to control these robots, which are basically giant demons or something she is made to bend and force to her will, as I understand it. Well, a simulation of her doing this. A computer being able to clone Rei doing this. She is disgusted by. Sickened by how it can be used to tear apart the child she refused to kill. Force the other one lone boy she cares for to do it. Like I said, Rei is supposed to have ethics and morals. One of the conspirators who knows everything even says as much of a broken doll as Rei she would find the truth unforgivable. That wanting to die part? More a case of wanting the ability to die, so I understand. Not to be brought back as a clone when she does die. When she is, she's just pissed off and tired. It could easily be one of several reasons why she does betray the man who supposedly cares for her. Or maybe Ray sees she was just being used, a tool for him, a tool to wipe out the human race. More to it than that, but that's basically how it is. She makes it clear she's against it. His son wants it too, she's against it. Sabotages it to some degree. So what's all this got to do with Ryko? To show how one idea can lead off into other directions. Don't know how, or why the idea of Rei Ayanami would lead to the character of Ryko. So I understand that Tanaka used it as influence to be everything Rei is not. He took inspiration from other things. Things that are meaningful to her.
Reiko Nagase from Ridge Racer. So I hear though Letty from Fast and Furious could easily be even stronger influence, or even Dom Toretto.
Reiko Hill from Rumble Roses. A obvious source for Tanaka. But she wanted more. She told me she wanted to be what Reiko should have been, but also how to be more than just a straight rip. How do you take a character, an inspiration, and make it your own? Is the point.
It's aged well. Okay, my version of the Undertaker graveyard promo before 2003 Survivor Series. It's been a long time since I've been here. You know, part of me thought I'd never come back here again.
The part of me that never wanted to come back here again. This is on you. You brought me back here.
So since you're the one who brought me here, you're the one who's gonna pay. This is your day of reckoning. You know, as I look around this place, it's filled with souls that have been laid to rest. But all these poor, unfortunate souls, they have one thing in common. There's not one of them, not a single person, ever threatened my family. Not one of these people wanted my sister raped or my family kidnapped. You know, it's almost a shame to desiccate this land with your rotten soul. Yes, but I will. I understand that you think I'm an infidel. And that you've asked for forgiveness for what you intend to do, infidels. Well, Holy Warrior, I think I need to inform you. You're in for the most brutal time of your life. This brutality will only stop when you beg for forgiveness for threatening my family. When the life starts to seep from your body, and you look up. As you're laying there looking up at me, looking for forgiveness, and looking for mercy, all I'll have for you is contempt. Keep beating on you until you're in the state you wished of my sister. The only reason I won't finish the job is so you can live the rest of your days living with the knowledge that I'm better than you. Because with that last gasp of air you hold so dearly in your lungs before losing consciousness, I want you to realize that you're ready to die. And I want you to face death knowing that I stopped just short of that point. That I spared you. So you could live with the demons of the people you've used, abused, hurt, and destroyed. People that have worked for you and people that have broken their back for you. And I want you to think of your family, because they're the ones you betrayed the most. And as the cold, hard facts sink in, the realization is that not only is this infidel more moral than you, but this infidel, much as you hate me, is good enough to beat you.
Changes when a video game is remade. Getting mad at the smallest change when a game is remade? Is that what video games are these days? These are the big issues in game. Does not being able to look up a woman's skirt in the remake ruin? Hold on, could you do it in the original? You couldn't! And the remake's quality hinged on if you could. How does that work? Some people believe that rally attendance or number of subscribers equates to votes and trusted sources. Not sure how to explain this. Here goes. Were that how it actually worked, we would currently have President Makey Diva and get our news from Pornhub. Fucking Pornhub! Like something I noticed about video games?
Wish fans could explain this to me. They will point out how a title has the worst voice acting ever. Okay, but they love it and 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 love it, unironically far as I can tell. They keep lovingly referring to the most cringe-worthy of lines. So is it the worst of all time or the best? I can't give you the skeleton key to unlock your fitness potential. I don't know any secret tricks to lose weight and build muscle. Just one, and it's no secret. You train like an absolute freak. Harder and faster than you ever thought possible. To the razor's edge of doing yourself long-term harm or injury. And that's the key. Finding that fine line between intensity and hurting yourself. Only one way to find where that line is. If you have the guts. There's no prototype or model fitness regime or weights or diet that fits all. You train like a freak. Different people have different goals. They require specific diets, tailored food to meet their needs. The right kind of diet to give them the energy to lift weights. Or stamina for long-distance sprints in order to aid in reducing body fat. And that goes double for the workout you put in. If you can actually muster up for the gym, then triple the importance of a proper diet. Are you eating steak or red meat to give you the power to lift those weights? Are you going heavy weights and less reps for size or less weight and more reps for stamina? Can you go till failure? Can you finalize your workout while already drained to shock your muscles into growth? What type of equipment do you have to work with? All these factors and many, many, many more go into tailoring the diet and exercise regime that's right for you. Beware the cult of personality. If supporters not only love and worship an idol, they talk and act like they want to be fucked by them, you are not dealing with reasonable people. You are dealing with a cult. I don't care if you're Misha Tate. If you mess up, you get held accountable. Not throw yourself before the court screaming, "Take me instead." So, some fan showed me this at a Full Metal taping. We were doing Nitro and in meeting with fans, one said he had a video he wanted to show me. Okay, what was I gonna do? Refuse? Make his day? Might be something interesting. After a few seconds, I had to ask, why am I in a video game? This fan thought enough of me to have exactly how I look, how I sound in a Grand Theft Auto game.
Galatians 6:7. Do not be deceived. God is not mocked. For whatever a man sows, this he will also reap. For the one who sows to his own flesh will from the flesh reap corruption, but the one who sows to the Spirit will from the Spirit reap eternal life. That may surprise you hearing me recite Paul. That I know the Bible. It's true, however. It's especially true of a woman who was once considered the greatest fighter, male or female, termed the baddest woman on the planet, Ronda Rousey. We saw it from the way Bitch Correa went after her, and in a scene that never gets old, Ronda made her look like a domestic abuse victim. She then fought Holly Holm, got her fucking head kicked in, lost the fight, her first loss, and she couldn't handle it. I could understand being upset, but she lost her mind. To this day, Ronda Rousey refuses to accept she lost. It's almost like that kick did something to her brain, but fans point out she was like this before the home fight. Bottom line is you don't keep making excuses. You sit there and cry long as you need to, then come back stronger and better. Rousey never did that. If you're that mentally unhinged that you cannot accept defeat, then maybe fighting is not for you. So you lost once. Once, big deal. I say this cheering that she made men cry being on the cover of Men's Fitness. Absolutely support her in her endeavors, in her achievements. When she's wrong, say that she's wrong. Not be blind to someone, whether good or bad. Unfortunately, we do need to talk about the bad with Ronda Rousey. She lost me when it came out. She was physically abusing. Being a domestic abuser, that's when I stopped being a fan. I'm sorry, but I gotta be honest, that was a complete turn off for me. Just not being able to get over her losses. Okay, this as well indicates more of a pattern to me. Then she thought to get into pro wrestling. get into the WWA. Let's talk about her getting into pro wrestling. Frankly, she didn't get it. At first, she was loved and adored. Then when going up against Becky Lynch, she was booed. And was mystified. The fans weren't supposed to boo her, but she just lost it. Yeah, wrestling is fake. Now find a new joke, Rhonda. Spoiler, she didn't. Yes, the arrest wasn't real, but that was the bit. That was what they did to add to the drama or interest or intrigue. Android 18 and Bulma didn't really destroy the world. Are we supposed to be mad that we're still here because Dragon Ball depicted the destruction of Earth? But she just kept on and on about wrestling being fake. Not even in character. Ronda Rousey said she didn't care about the script. She legit wanted to beat the shit out of Rebecca Quinn as opposed to her wrestling character Becky Lynch. She also turned her ire on the fans, attacking them not as a wrestling character but for real. I don't think wrestlers should attack the fans. I'm not sure that's conducive to getting heat, but again, that's the bit in wrestling. You do these sorts of things in wrestling. And the way she has acted, the way she had performed, she's turned herself into a joke. Quite frankly, whether in the UFC or in wrestling, we didn't want to see her get beat, the bitch get her comeuppance. We just wanted the cunt to go away. Were Gooners getting into her and Ronda reacted, that would be one thing. Problem being she went after them and then gets mad that they hate her. Whether real or fake, she's got to be able to handle that shit. And she showed she can't, whether playing a character or really trying to interact online. Do not be deceived. God is not mocked. For whatever a man sows, that he will also reap. For he who sows to his flesh will of the flesh reap corruption, but he who sows to the Spirit will of the Spirit reap everlasting life. Ronda Rousey had sown into the wind. Whatever positives you can say about her, because of her actions, she has reaped the berry. So she doesn't want to do wrestling anymore. Again, this is your third time quitting. Good. Piss off. That might sound harsh, but it's for your benefit. If you are legitimately struggling mentally, and you are, we can see you are, then don't come back. You'll be a lot better off for it.
Supposedly, the UFC, mixed martial arts, is becoming more political. There's apparently an outcry over topics such as the gay and lesbian community. What? MMA is a very homoerotic sport. There's no two ways about it. If it's not considered gay to be a mixed martial art, then it's definitely gay friendly. With that said, what about me? What about me? Just because I'm a fighter doesn't mean I'm a lesbian. Doesn't mean I'm into guys either. My love is fighting, and maybe I'll find a man or woman somewhere. Honestly, hadn't thought about it.
So I got to live my dream in fighting the legendary Hall of Fame, King of Iron Fist Warrior, Queen of Iron Fist, if you will. You know who I'm talking about, and this fan runs in. It happens in fighting, wrestling, more than it should, unfortunately. And you would have seen it happen. The fighters, ref, they lay into the invading fan despite the fact they get fined. It's like a $10,000 fine for a physical altercation with someone invading. Yeah, didn't care. Fan might have had a knife or otherwise been dangerous, and instinct, I guess, took over. I just wanted to protect my opponent and wrapped her up the best way I knew how. Not punches or kicks, just locked them up in a submission so they couldn't move, do anything. Joan wisely didn't get involved, just stopped fighting the match. Seeing that I had this fan in this sort of lying body ride, she wasn't able to do anything physical with her on her back, holding her down until security got involved to break us up. They ended up not finding me because I didn't get nasty or vicious like other fighters have. And in all fairness, the fan did admit she messed up. Truthfully, it was probably the thrill of that fan's life, more touch, more sexually suggestive action than she's ever gotten.
Fully beat down. The Jason Mayhem Miller show where bullying victims have mixed martial artists get revenge on their behalf. Putting aside what Jason Miller had done, Putting aside whether it was all fake, should Jerry Springer with fists be brought back? Would I be a part of it? Here's the thing. These reprobates, these online trolls, they want the attention. Same with game show contestants in Japan humiliating themselves for attention, or men in Brazil getting their faces slammed into women's asses for attention. Sure, they get ass handed to them. They're also getting what they want. Public exposure. Good or bad, people tune in to see it. Might be better to let the law handle it. With that said, were they to bring back Bully Beatdown, would I take part in it? Fuck yeah! Fuck yeah! I'd be all for taking part in it. I'd host a show. I'd do the fights. Have friends, colleagues, professional fighters who would take part. Make Michelle Watterson look about as threatening as Tinkerbell. I'd absolutely be a part of it. One thing that I've seen with my focus on health, physical health, trying to keep in peak condition, is mental health. People who have made mistakes in their lives, and it's certainly a matter to address. Even with me being unqualified to discuss it, mental health awareness is important. It is vitally important. I'm not sure if it would be something helpful to others. Living simply, thinking simply seems to do it for me. I've seen it in people from all walks of life. People who obsess over something like politics. People who try and do something like buy up a town. Easy explanation might be they take on too much. They would be under incredible stress. And not sure if this is accurate, they miss out on details. Important details. They could be trying to do 50 different things and overlook something or not realize something. Something more important than forgetting a tin of corn at the supermarket. I think, reading up on it when I look up health in general, some cannot handle the stress they put themselves under. Imagine, if you will, and excuse the example, the incredible stress someone would be under believing they alone will save America. They are the only voice of reason. Such a individual believes every conspiracy, even the ones that contradict each other. They believe the world is out to get them. Living such a way would very easily cook the brain. We can absolutely go into what happened in Maine. Go into detail about it. I'd much rather we didn't have to. If we have to go into it, some of the Second Amendment defenders claim it's mental health that's the problem. Men who think they're women or men and women trying to prevent shootings, okay? Some of the same people claiming these are mental health issues and defend the Second Amendment, not only love guns to the point they seemingly want to be fucked by guns, but act in a manner that suggests they already have. Might that be a mental illness? These are the same kooks who know with absolute certainty and zero evidence that David DePape was lying when he confessed on video. Why even listen to such craziness? Why even listen to such craziness? Why even entertain giving such ideas the time of day? Bad for your health. Take up smoking if you really want to do yourself harm.
Tekken 8 came out on Australia Day of all times. Just like the legendary Mass Effect 2, I'm told. I played it, went through the details, because of my hero, Jin Kazama. Love her and not ashamed to admit it. No spoilers, but you delve into the lore. The history of what happened in the games. June shows why she's the legendary Hall of Fame Queen of Iron Fist mixed martial arts warrior. Officially, it's Kazama Ryu-style traditional martial arts, but it's based in Jiu-Jitsu, Aikido, Judo, Karate, and you play as her or against her. She uses some of the moves I would use. Moves Royce Gracie, Dan Severn, Chuck Little would use. Jun would have been great in the UFC, and the main story mode. Honestly, they could have brought Angel in for some of it and have more Jun in a different role. But given Harada, so I'm told, didn't like being ass shit, even after he had a poll about it, I'll take what's there. There's also, Jun's resolution to Jin's and Kazuya's actions. He's supposed to be a non-violent pacifist. Yeah, right. Kazama women are no less vicious, brutal, or psychotic than the Mishimas. Just look at Asuka. Enough said. You know? Nathan Wadman had to have been having a ball recapping that part of the story.
So 2K Games continually release games that are buggy and don't work. Can I ask this? Can I ask why they are allowed to still operate with the knowledge they sell a faulty product?
The revelation that the Shia Queen's Wing Commander intended to wipe out anything the Kilrathi could use in the event we failed to destroy the Siva disturbed many. I could understand the logic of using such scorched earth tactics. Better to die than be forced to serve the Kilrathi. But what could one carrier do to deprive the enemy of even a colony, much less a world or system? The carrier's commanding officer, he had seen the Kirathi slave mines and was plagued by nightmares of them. He considered killing as many as he could a necessary evil, a mercy in comparison to the alternative. He's currently in the care of Confed Sai, though I doubt he would command again. All the more reason we had to succeed, no matter the cost. I saw the impact our mission had, from the horror of what happened to Goddard to the impact it had on the Claw's pilots. Todd was ready to completely snap, and with what happened during Thor's hammer, I'm not sure I would have joined him. I cannot say I blame him either. Even Ian was having doubts, and I know a thing or two about Australians. They don't rattle easily. If he was concerned, there was very good reason. Aichijo Reku was one of the pilots who joined the Claw's flight roster after Operation Thor's Hammer. A straight-talking mercenary that Confed had hired from the Shea Queen. Think the stereotype of the Japanese fighter pilot. Now think the complete opposite. We were almost nothing alike, except for one thing. While I saw death walk beside us, every day Aichijo took a slightly different attitude. She admitted to not having much love for the Confederation, but saw us as a more worthy alternative to stop the Kirathi. And though she never actually said it, I believe Raiko saw herself as death, to visit on the enemy. I think she was this way because Reiko did want the war to stop, for an end to the killing. But she firmly believed killing the Kirathi would mean saving the world under our protection, a noble goal, for how little she thought of nobility. Turned out she had depression, though one would not know it had she not gone to our onboard psychologist and admitted as such. Dr. Andropoulos, Eiko said later, thought she downplayed her condition but clearly understood it, and at her suggestion to focus on others who needed him more than she allowed her to keep flying. Right to the end, when the Claw was destroyed. She had transferred back to the Queen when it happened. And over the years since, with the revelations of the Society of Mandarins, traitors to the Confederation, she began studying how to stop them, including Christopher's role in the story of cloaked ships. Because she couldn't prove that the Kirathi did not have such technology, she sided with Blair. But Confed needed someone to blame for the loss of the flagship. To hear Reiko's side of the story. Better they cite negligence on one pilot than admit such an edge to the enemy. Or that they somehow didn't realize the possibility Killer did have stealth fighters.
The heart wants what it wants. I know that for a fact when Lieutenant Anderson took me out while I was training recruits at the academy. That was when I first met Philip. It may surprise you to know that I am not ignorant of how some women throw themselves at men. One I remember seeing at a bar spread her legs wide for a man, a clear invitation. Another wore this short dress, not me but someone asked why, so she could take her partner's hand when the urge struck, a mental image she felt kind in offering to anyone in earshot. One of the recruits I was training was open about entertaining her man when the opportunity arose. She could have been far more crass about it. I was happy for them, but I didn't indulge. There was a war going on. Getting drunk and acting like Hunter on the Claw, that was as far as I dared take it. Were it not for trying to stop the Kirathi, maybe I would have found a man. My focus needed to be on the war. People were fighting and dying to save humanity. I wouldn't have felt right doing so, though had no problem with the people I knew who did. Still, I agreed with Brittany that I needed a distraction. Her words of wisdom would serve me well over the years. Brittany, for her intensity as a pilot, understood that the war could not be our entire lives. In her words, she thought I would be tired of yelling at recruits when they mess up. I had to admit she had a point. Anyway, this was when I met Philip. Like I said, the heart wants what it wants. He wanted me, and not Brittany, who I thought was trying to steer me and him to each other. And when he got to know the other people on the claw, Jean, Gwen, Maya, the guys of course, but my point is he stayed by my side. Men cheat, so do women. Some take a dim view on relationships for that reason, that their significant other would have an affair. Philip's loyalty impressed me, however. He could have been tempted by someone like Maya and thought I was better. And I certainly wanted him. I wanted to show him Oasis or Fireca. Alas, it was not to be, but the time we had. As I said, I wasn't ignorant to what happens in a relationship, or the things I heard on even the most basic of things. Wearing lipstick, for example, or red hair, much like Jean. Even if there was truth to them, that was no reason to disparage Angel. On the other hand, some see a taboo in kissing. So I understand it, courtesans, or to use a more blunt term, adult entertainers. They are not supposed to touch their clients, or the ones where a lot more than touch is the point. Kissing is off limits. Why? While some are willing to subject their bodies and the body of their mate to the most extreme things, kissing suggests intimacy, and intimacy is not the idea. Pleasure is. No strings attached. Kissing suggests a form of attachment. That is actually the idea. Yet another girl at the academy was all for kissing and touching her partner precisely because intimacy is the point. I certainly did with Philip. So did Hunter. I know, casual abuse, but it was all in fun. He meant nothing by it. Plus Ian is Australian, like Brittany. Between the two of them they are like that. Point is, I have a lot to be thankful to her for. Getting me and Philip together, of course, and being wise enough to not make every second of her life revolve around conflict. Her wisdom to be able to change her focus aided me greatly. Of course, our focus had to be on stopping the Kilrathi, but on hearing about the attack on Epsilon Station, of course I cared, but I couldn't afford to dwell on it, not just for Conth's sake, but my own sanity. I tried to focus on anything else, secretly holding on to the hope Philip would be rescued, returned to me when this is over. But again it was not to be. The anger, the hatred, emptiness, on learning this, led me to refocus. I had to accept Philip was gone. At the very least there was nothing I could do for him. All I could do was concentrate on avenging him for now.
Carlita the Reaper Francesca. Before the Vega campaign, she was a skilled pilot in the scimitar. Loathed by some in Confed, but a fighter she used to great effect when she aided the Tiger's Claw. Carlita was working for Intel at the time, having helped what they called a sky bridge. It would greatly aid the Confederation. But if the Kilrathi found it, then it would lead them straight to Earth. Her operation was two-tier. First, Confed had to secure the bridge, a wormhole that the Pilgrims had discovered and went to us about, so it would aid in the war effort. The second was to erase any evidence of its existence so it would not fall into enemy hands. Some wanted the informants eliminated, and it was uncertain at time which way Carlita would side. Would she aid the Pilgrims and incur the wrath of Confed, or kill them to ensure their information was secure? They were sworn to secrecy, but there were concerns of whether they could be trusted. When the time came, Carlita chose to fend off the Kilrathi closing in. Whatever her orders in regards to the Pilgrims, where she saw defending the Sky Bridge as priority. It was believed Carlita died defending the wormhole. I would discover years later that was not the case. She was working with ground troops then, fighting against the Society of Mandarins. I was there looking for information on the Kilrathi slave operations, which she was eager to assist me in. Whatever happened at the Sky Bridge didn't hamper her ferocity. Striking the Mandarin base, she laid fire on one of their only means of escape. In fact, I had to try and get her to come to her senses. We needed someone alive to get intel from, whether she forgot or just didn't care in the heat of the moment. Either way, I got through to her, and what started looking like execution ended up as a capture. There were over 1,000 humans at the base, ranging from traders to Confed security duped into aiding the Mandarins to civilians to prisoners. I was very grateful to have reached Kalita. Got through to her if she had lost her mind. The Mandarins were responsible for her son's death, after all, and she could have committed mass murder had she not known or cared about many at the base being innocent. Good evening, pilots. With Jeanette on leave, I will be conducting the briefing. We received a communication from the Union of Border Worlds with information of pirates smuggling through their sector. While this is more a law enforcement matter than a military one, as well as coming to their aid will mean the Border Worlds will remain in Confed against the Kilathi. Some of what they are smuggling is helping fund the war effort. As well as drugs and weapons, the Border Worlds have it on authority that the pirates have exploitation material. Whether the pirates actually know or merely ask no questions about their cargo, either way we are to seize any such content they find and the ships they are on. It is believed the pirates will be intimidated before the Confederation Navy and Space Force, and will quickly surrender if not themselves then who they were dealing with. Nonetheless, exercise caution out there. Computer, display Caprea. We will be running a rotating patrol throughout these 4 waypoints. Alpha Wing will fly through the asteroid belts the pirates might be using to evade detection. Beta Wing will leave the thicket to Alpha and skim the planet's atmosphere for any sign of the pirates. Watch for its gravitational pull. Get too close and you may not be able to escape. Charlie and Delta will follow Alpha and Beta, with the crews changing shifts on return. You will be flying the longbows. Any pirates who surrender, inform the Concordia, and we in turn send aid for law enforcement to take over. Individual wing assignments. Alpha Wing will be flown by Scorpion and Peacemaker, Beta by Dragon and Falcon, Charlie by Mage and Chimerian, Delta by Kingfish and Blaze. When one flight gets back, report what you found. Then we'll have fresh crews take over. With the constant patrols, the pirates may move after seeing one pass only to be caught by the next one. Good hunting, people. Dismissed.
Would you care to join me for a drink, Maverick? There is no more news of Epsilon Station or my fiancé, but I will not think of that now. Shotglass believes we may fly in asteroid fields today. I hope he is right. There is something I wish to try. Have you ever seen Iceman in an asteroid field? No, he does some amazing things. If his front shield is gone, he will turn tail and let his enemy come up behind him. He performs evasive maneuvers and uses his thrusters, and sets course straight for a large asteroid. At the last moment possible he rolls out. The Kilrathi does not always follow successfully. Of course Iceman prefers to do this in hornets or rapiers, not raptors.
Petya Tylerovich. Before I was assigned to the Concordia, she was a Ukrainian descendant. Her ancestors fought for the Azov Battalion against the invading Russians. Supposedly, there was an ace pilot, the Ghost of Kiev. Wasn't her family, but she knew her history. Petya told of another legend, the ghosts of Razgriz. Supposedly they were deemed traitors and were killed, but later returned as a hero whilst before they were considered demons. She brought this up because it was Japanese mythology, or so I understood, and one of the pilots was a woman, much like me, according to her. I was amused, sort of, on learning that it was a 21st century Japanese video game the story came from. I did find it interesting, and thought that was why Petya brought it up. Or maybe it was just a joke to rile me up. Either way, with some further experience she could be the pilot to take my place.
Live your life, live your wrestling career, in a way that Chris Jericho won't do a hit piece on you. I think that's a fair comment to make. You know I2J would be dying to have a Dark Side of the Ring episode where he links Tanaka doing bodyguard work to contract killings. He would love for there to be a link between Karen buying up businesses and criminal activities. I know he would want the details of Judy's run-ins with the law so he can play them up. If there's a war crime he can accuse Carlita of while she was in Special Forces, Jericho would find it. Even my own sister, Ariane. She wouldn't be safe. Anne would be the first to admit something political, she said, would be twisted around, and suddenly she's some Greek first white supremacist who is for or anti-Brexit and would be placed in the worst light. I just hope he doesn't think to link me to doing a Sturgis show. Matter of fact, I probably gave him his next pay-per-view. Natoli Terran, racist member of the Klan. For the 6 of you who played through WWE 2K20's My Career mode, you know how vile Brooklyn Von Braun is. For everyone else, 2K has this strange habit of breaking kayfabe to tell the story. The wrestlers really do have it in for you, not as part of a wrestling storyline. It's not just The Undertaker beating down Daisuke Kirichi. It's Mark Calloway genuinely wanting to destroy the Moondust 2's career. And for 2K20, they almost set out to create the biggest heel in wrestling history. Brooklyn Von Braun went from school bully to tormenting Kurt Angle. Her actions went far, far past Stone Cold Steve Austin sleeping during Lance Storm's match. She bought up orphanages and puppy shelters so her so-called charity would feed her ego, then brag about shutting them down. And all throughout career mode, she had a raging personal vendetta against your characters, Red and Trey. Brooklyn Von Braun really wanted to destroy their careers, even bringing up Tree's dead parents and Red covering for him. Unless you're Taker, anytime you bring up death in wrestling, you're playing with fire. And for Brooklyn to use the very real deaths of his parents in her personal feud, it got dark. And to get half the roster involved in her very real feud, we'll have Jericho put it, "You just made the list!" Gamers, serious hardcore gamers, may recall a series called Wing Commander. A series that ended with a movie before I was even born. Many would know that I'm also a gamer, into flight sims to honor my big sister. With so many more advanced and possibly better games out there, why do I have such a love for them? As well as the novels, the cartoon, the games by and large being great, what really got me into them was the fact CD Projekt Red are fans. Cyberpunk 2077 makes that clear. One of the gangs in the game is named the Tiger's Claw. Okay, innocuous in and of itself. Of course I had to play the most hyped and anticipated game of all time, and full credit goes to Susie Hunter, the Sphere Hunter, Catmom, for her detailed review and love of the game enticing me to buy it. Well, you can play guitar in your apartment. Okay, that ties into Johnny Silverhand and Samurai. Hey, the game has Japanese influence. Okay, fair. One of the big gangsters in the game is named Maiko. That rang a bell, having studied my history including Wing Commander, the characters, pilots, story, and lore. Associate of the Tiger's Claw, named Maiko. Suspicious. One of the villains of Edge Runners, the anime of the game, is named Tanaka. A Japanese setting where you can play guitar has a gang named the Tiger's Claw, with the associated villain named Maiko and another villain named Tanaka. Come on now. And with such a obvious reference that even I could see it, I took another look at the games. In detail, Academy. The story of how Blair was on trial for treason. How Angel went from a nerd with a big heart to a more humanist commander fitting for Yolanda Gillette as we saw her in Diving In. Yes, I am that much of a fan. Enough so that I'm getting others to take part in fan projects. One thing to realize with fake news media. I mean actual fake news, not any source you disagree with. You can tell they are fake by seeing if their reaction to getting it wrong is they don't care. Legitimate sources will correct their mistakes. Real fake news. Disinformation farms only care about the narrative. Real fake news. Sources that traffic in fake news? The ones that are used for that purpose? They care about red meat for their base, getting their viewers or listeners or readers to believe it. Not whether it's actually true. If it's false, they don't care. This is the story they're pushing. Say a car crash on the Canada border. Fake news will immediately jump to it being terrorism. When it's shown that's not the case, doesn't matter. Terrorism is the story they are going with. Agenda-based reporting is what it's about. Conspiracism, I heard it called. I like that. I like it. Conspiracism. Conspiracycism. However you want to define it. It's described as seeing a incident, say the Titanic sinking, and immediately trying to create a conspiracy about a ghost ship between it and the California, or the Titanic itself being a ghost ship, or the wrath of God sinking it, or a cursed car making it hit the iceberg. All true theories, by the way. And when shown that's not the case, the truth is ignored. You're pushing your version of events, damn it. People are to believe what you tell them, even if you know they're lies. Sadly, this is all too prevalent today. Night gathers, and now my watch begins. It shall not end until my death. I shall take no wife, hold no lands, father no children. I shall wear no crowns and win no glory. I shall live and die at my post. I am the sword in the darkness. I am the watcher on the walls. I am the shield that guards the realms of men. I pledge my life and honor to fighting woke, for this night and all the nights to come. Yeah, sounds silly, doesn't it? We all take part in the culture wars. We don't like ours, but we sure hate yours. No women in media unless they're whores. Let the bodies hit the floor. On a more serious note, take Dragon Age. It directly references rape. In fact, one story begins with a rape party and portrays rape as the evil it is. Some people are very uncomfortable with rape. I would like to think most everyone would be. Some cannot even handle the word rape or allusions to it, dancing around it. Should Dragon Age be censored? With that said, for many of these culture warriors, their wounds are self-inflicted. They only have themselves to blame. They know the content of, say, The Witcher or Overwatch won't be to their liking. It's too woke for them. How dare they rename one of the characters? To them he will always be named after a sexual predator. But they love rubbing their faces in the content they hate. Love hate watching or hate playing. So any butthurt they get is really their own fault.
10 badass moments in video games. Number 10. Sakura vs. Bison, Street Fighter Alpha 2. This is her introductory game, and she's presented as just a schoolgirl with a crush on the hero Ryu. Well, when Bison puts him under mind control, Sakura fights the dictator and actually fights him off, breaking through Ryu's brainwashing. Badass. Number 9. Jun Kazama defeats the devil, Tekken 2. Another fighting game example, this time the tall Asian girl who works in animal welfare investigating the Mishima conglomerate. What she finds instead is its CEO possessed by devil. The devil. Jun punches him out in devil form, then marries him, and does it again when pregnant with their son, and saves his life a third time fighting off basically martial arts Godzilla. Badass. Number 8. Aerith saves the world, Final Fantasy VII. That flower girl you meet early in the game. Turns out the villain that everyone fears, he fears her. Enough so that he kills her when she goes to try and stop his plans to destroy the world. That still doesn't stop her, as her efforts were enough to stop the meteor he tried to use to wipe out everything. And lest you think the fear aspect isn't there, Sephiroth had cloned himself and during a battle against a poisoned cloud Aerith in ravines, sending him fleeing. Sephiroth fears Aerith. Canon. Bad. Ass. Number 7. Chris and Shiva kill Wesker, Resident Evil 5. After 5 games of his efforts to wipe out the human race and the petty cruelty he inflicted, the 5th game ends with Chris and Shiva having already saved the world, stopping Wesker from unleashing his virus. His attempts at revenge fall short, first by Shiva stabbing him repeatedly in the heart, despite disinfecting her, then both she and Chris using dual rocket launchers to blow away the Osama bin Laden of bioterrorism. Despite how popular he was, Capcom have stated this is it, no coming back from this. Badass. Number 6, Luke Skywalker saves the galaxy again, Wing Commander 3. The Wing Commander series is basically the Pacific campaign of World War II or Vietnam in space, with a some 30-year war where humans are fighting a losing battle. The third game has the character you played in the first 2 games portrayed by Mark Hamill, aka the Joker, James Arnold, and that guy from Star Wars. Earlier the Kilrathi brutally kill his girlfriend. How does he react? Use the bomb she was developing to blow up their home world, just like Beggar's Canyon back home. Basically Hiroshima and forcing the Japanese to surrender. Badass. Number 5, you are Revan, Knights of the Old Republic. Throughout the game you learn of just how much of a badass the Dark Lord Revan was, having gone from saving the galaxy from the Mandalorians after defying the Jedi and stay out of the conflict, to becoming a Sith who instead of wanton cruelty and destruction used intelligence to bring control, building their empire rather than just annihilating anything in their path. Then late in the game it's revealed you were Revan, badass not just for the twist but for the fact that after fighting Revan being betrayed Bastila, aka Mrs. Commander Shepard herself, saved Revan and sought to try and redeem the Dark Lord. Speaking of. Number 4, Suicide Mission, Mass Effect 2. This list can easily go to Shepard themselves, but the crux of what can be regarded as game of the decade is recruiting a team to help stop alien race from waging war against the galaxy. What makes this stand out is the need to work at getting the best ending. You help the crew with their daddy issues. You find and apply the upgrades to make sure the team survives. You assign what role each member plays in the final assault. Do it wrong and potentially even Shepard can die. Do it right and it's a curb stomp battle, everyone lives and you get to stick it to the terrorist group you were forced to work for. Badass. Number 3, Abandoning Serpo, Dead Island. Everyone should remember the trailer. Riptide was even darker, with the end having the person responsible for all the terror trying to hold you hostage, a cure for the zombie virus you are infected with in exchange for bailing him out of the hell he created. After slaughtering thousands of infectees, rapists, the cannibals the virus stemmed from, and criminals, your character's response is to leave them to die. Badass. Number 2, Solus saving the world before planning to destroy it, Dragon Age. Inquisition tells the story of the Mage Templar War that started in the previous game and a cataclysmic event you are seemingly responsible for. Turns out it's an old god trying to use that power for himself, but who gave that power? One of your companions, Solus, who was working for Flemeth, the woman behind many of the events in Thetis. She comforts him, hugs him expecting punishment for his failure with Corypheus. Then she dies, Solus seemingly killing her, maybe accidentally, maybe deliberately. He later uncovers a plot to wipe out the southern kingdoms and puts a stop to it, before plotting to bring his people back to their former glory, an event that could end the world. Your Inquisitor gets their own badass moment here, promising to save Solus from himself despite losing their arm, or stopping him once and for all. And number 1. Edge saves the world again. Ace Combat. By the 4th game in this series a well-established lore had formed. Basically the meteor Ulysses collides with the world, devastating most all of the nations and bringing about the age of superweapons that they tried and failed to defend themselves with, before using them on each other. Also well established was the character of Key Nagas. If the name sounds familiar, this is the beloved Reiko Nagase from Ridge Racer, here as an Air Force pilot, first officer on an airline, mercenary, transhuman terrorist, NATO, depending on the game. The Unsung War had her as the main character, and after saving the world from basically Nazis she discovers another meteor. Edge, despite wishing to stay retired, becomes an astronaut and flies into space to save the world. Skies Unknown has you return the favor and save her life, after your squadron tries to destroy the space elevator, knowing doing so would abandon her. You fight off the drones, trying to raise a robot army that would plunge the world into a forever war and give Edge a safe place to return home. Dual badass.